Great. Well, thanks for joining today on September 11th. It turned out sort of coincidental that today being the anniversary of 9/11, we're going to be taking a look at New York City over the years. So, for the folks that don't know it, I'm originally from New York, born in beautiful downtown Brooklyn, yay, Flatbush. And so I had a lot of fond memories of New York. Some of the pictures I started collecting on purpose. A lot of others I got as I was working on my various World's Fair collections. And I would buy people's pictures of their trip to the World's Fair, and there would be pictures of their trip someplace else. So I ended up with a lot of pictures back from the 39 vintage working on the 39 World's Fair. A lot of different things about 64 and that. Show of hands, how many people originally from New York? Okay. Oh, we got Carol. Yeah, she was there until 3 months old. So we'll see how much of it she remembers, right?
I was a year old, but that's okay.
Carol, okay. Well, let's see if you remember any of it through that point in time. But I'm going to be skipping and jumping around the place. If the Carol, if the sound gets bad from the air conditioning, let me know. I've got the headset ready here, but if I don't need to use it, so much the better. So let me start here. We will go and jump into 1963. Where did the picture go? Okay. We are out in Rockaways Playland. It was a really neat amusement park out on Rockaways. Folks not familiar with it, Rockaways is out along the ocean. You have Brooklyn, then you got Rockaways. You can get to it over there by taking the bridge that goes out towards Reese Park, the beach out there. Drive along. There's also a subway stop out there, which I understand still says Playland. But Playland was an amusement park opened in 1902, closed in 1985. In the background, you see the Atom Smasher roller coaster. And for fans of Cinerama, if you go see the movie This is Cinerama, that was the roller coaster that you see in amazing widescreen as they take you through it. So Rockaways Playland was an amazingly popular park. Did very, very well. With so many people in the New York area able to get to it, it did well until the 70s, and then it became a victim of itself by not putting more money into it and continuing to try to do the same old, same old, same old year after year. A lot of people started wanting to go other places, do other things, and get other experiences. Calypso was one of the new rides for 63. We had previously mentioned a talk about the 62 Seattle World's Fair, how that was a brand new attraction introduced by a European manufacturer in 62. So they were still doing upgrades and that in the 60s. And my family went to Playland a number of times and really enjoyed it. It was really a shame when they closed it. Today, if you go there, it's all housing. It's all totally residential. If you can tell where it was. If you look at an overhead view, you can see that the area just looks newer and different from the rest of the Rockaways. And if you go up and down the streets, that one giant square, which used to be Playland, the houses are slightly newer. They're 30 years old instead of 60 or 70 years old. But it was a great spot, fun amusement rides. A typical kiddie thing you would walk through, fun houses, that sort of stuff. Hell and back. I mean, that just tempts you. You want to go in there and see what the hell's going on. Very iconic image. They had the What Me Worry sort of guy over at Steeplechase, but they had the clown here at Playland. A nice view of the Midway area down there. One of the rides you'll never catch me on, where they spin you at very high speeds and try to induce nausea. Whip ride, and again in the background, the Atom Smasher. I'm not a giant roller coaster fan, but there's nothing that beats a wooden roller coaster from the way they kind of creak and groan and shake and make you think. Besides just going off the end of it, is the whole thing going to come crashing down around me. The Wacky Shack, fun stuff. Go on inside. Big time. See yourself in television. So big thing for 1963. Kind of an interesting bug ride there. The most fun packed midway in America. So we're going to jump from here to another amusement park, and we're going to go slightly across the river here. 1 second. New York City. We're going to go to another amusement park, Palisades Amusement Park over in New Jersey. Anybody who was a fan of Superman comics in the 1960s would have seen in the comics a coupon for 10 cents off from your pal Superman to go to Palisades Park. This was another one that fell victim to, over time, to the increasing price of real estate. But it was originally built by a trolley line, as a lot of these old amusement parks were. And the idea was you would pay to take the trolley out to go to the amusement park. Sometimes you would take the trolley out, and it was a free area, picnic ground, that sort of thing. And then to get people coming, they'd put in a ride, a merry-go-round or something like that, and it just grew and grew. But Playland was very popular in New York, and Pacific Palisades across the side was probably even more so, was the largest one. Again, big roller coaster. The interesting thing about this roller coaster was it came down on one of the turns, was facing right at the river. Now, again, this all looks at ground level, but the Palisades is on a giant cliff up over the Hudson River. So when you came out on this roller coaster and you just saw the turn, there was nothing out below the end of the roller coaster and down below but empty air. So it really made a tremendous impact when you're taking a ride on it. Again, some great views of it. They had a tremendous saltwater pool. It was, oh, here's the view you get when you, I think this was on the, I don't know if this was on the roller coaster or one of the other rides. George Washington Bridge off in the distance. But you can see how far down the river is here. Looking over towards the city. It was real popular. The Flight to Mars here, if you see it, is an exact copy of the same one that was out at the '62 World's Fair. Again, it was another manufacturer just built these, sold them to any place that wanted them. Back when the bridge was a single-decker bridge. Siamese twin calves, the sign over there on the left is going to give a reward if you walk in and you fail to see that they're actually living animals with all these freakish things to it. So a chicken with 3 wings and a half chicken, half turkey. Go see all these great things. I'd love to know who did this artwork on the girl here. It looks so familiar to a bunch of television commercials and things that were done at the time. So we're going to go jump the clock way, way back now, and we're going to go back across the river into New York. And we're going to take a look in New York. Some of these shots, I think, go from the 20s and others in the 30s. But a very quiet scene in Central Park. This bridge here is called the Pine Branch Arch. A lot of these things were very scenic at the time, and today they were clogged up by either taxis or in some cases lots of bicycles or people walking through. But we just have these were very large negatives. They were about 8 inches on a side, so they got tremendous detail when you go through it. So taking a walkway around Central Park. Indian Chief Bust. I've tried, for those folks that do know anything about New York, and Joey, if you recognize anything, so let me know. I've tried to go online and figure out where exactly some of these things are in the park. But this bust here, we'll also see a bear sculpture coming up in a moment. Hopping out of the park for a few minutes, the original Fulton Fish Market. Tremendous building, sadly torn down when they modernized the whole thing. Fulton Fish Market became sort of synonymous with the word corruption or bribery or grafts. Because if you wanted to sell your fish, you needed to pay the mob or else bad things would happen to you, the old protection racket. And I remember having a talk with Woody Cornelius Wood, the guy that built Freedom Land. And he was saying the only joy he had for the whole Freedom Land experience was reading a story in the newspaper when they indicted a bunch of people for running the protection scheme at the Fulton Fish Market, because they were the same ones who were running the protection scheme on him at Freedom Land. But this is sadly torn down. There is still a Fulton Fish Market. It's still a wholesale fish place. You can go in and buy fish there too. But sadly, it's much more streamlined and doesn't look like this particular great old building.
Bill.
Yeah,
Yeah, what they did was they recreated. They call it the sheds. They recreated what that building used to look like. It's not exactly the way it was, but it's a cafe now. But that's exactly where my father was in November of 1953, when Hollywood came and shot him for the movie The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. And he was sweeping right under those little sheds that you see.
oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
He worked at the port as a stevedore, did he?
Yeah, he was a Brooklyn longshoreman, and he was detailed that day at the Fulton Fish Market. He worked for a company right next door called United Fruit.
And Hollywood discovered him, huh?
And that's the first of two other films that he was in, just working on the docks. The next two were On the Waterfront and Hitchcock's The Wrong Man.
That's really cool. Right spot at the right time.
Yeah, exactly.
Super, thanks. Back to Central Park. Again, I just kind of scanned these in the order they were in the original envelope. This is known as the West 94th Street Reservoir Bridge. Olmsted, the guy that designed the park and laid out the grounds, did a really nice job of providing a tranquil setting out here. A lot of these things are now paved over. You can see back here, they were just kind of grass or dirt walkways. The skyline, of course, has grown up tremendously all around outside it. This is one I got a kick out of. Back in the 30s, there were still sailing ships coming into New York City and hauling things in. This particular one is offloading a giant load of lumber. You can see the name, the Frederick P. Elkin. I've gone through and researched a number of the ships and found out where they ended. Some had great endings to them. Others went up in flames. Some were used as barges and used as breakwaters, things like that along the way. But it's kind of strange when you think about seeing all the ships in some of these pictures. I shared some of these online, and some people get real excited about the ships. Other people, oh my God, that truck! It's a chain-driven truck. Which, if you do look at it, matter of fact, I can zoom in on it a bit. You can see the chain going to the rear wheel on it, and other people will start telling you exactly what model these things were, and the solid spoke wheels and all the rest of it. But he's probably been a long time since the chain-driven truck has driven down the streets of New York City. This one, Lion, again, I've gone and researched, Lion for Central Park, and all the ones I can find don't match this guy. So I would imagine he's still out there. And if anybody does know where any of these things have gone, you can throw in the chat or let me know. I'd love to find out. And then just some pictures of photographers. Again, if the next two, we see people with their cameras. If this rocks piece means anything or strikes a note with anybody, I would love to know exactly where it is. And then the photographers are out taking pictures of each other. He's got his trusty camera there, and so does he. So, Natalie dress folks from way back when. So we're going to jump around, go back in time again. Let's see where we will go now. I'll say this one here that has a lot of ship pictures in it. I'm going to do something on vintage ships one day, but I'll start here with this one, vintage ship. It's one of my favorite pictures of a great ship, the SS United States. Held the Blue Ribbon Award for the fastest transatlantic crossing for many, many years. The ship was revolutionary in that it was designed without wood in it to make it as fireproof as possible and also light as possible. It's in Philadelphia now. Gibbs was the guy that designed it. The only wood in it, they said, was a piano and the chopping blocks in the kitchen. But it was designed to be converted from a passenger liner into a troop ship in rapid fashion, and had a revolutionary hull bottom design and very unique propellers, which were classified top secret at the time. So it could make a tremendous amount of speed. Was taken out of service, and it has gone through several change of owners that have totally gutted the ship. There's next to nothing left inside. Been talking about making it a floating hotel, all sorts of things. My father was in the shipping business. He got us a tour of the United States. He and my mother sailed on it. Of all the ships that they were on, there was one that my dad was particularly proud of, the United States flagship, which is a very rare thing these days. The old piers along the Hudson. And we're taking a look now out towards the Hudson. You can see a whole bunch of ships in town at the time. The SS United States, the SS America, a smaller sister ship. Further up the river, the Bremen. Big gas tank, which is gone now. Just again in New York, that doesn't exist. Let me just grab the year on this. This is 1959. Not too bad a day air-wise for New York City in 1959. Taking a peek across some of the buildings. You get to see the various skyscrapers. I'm not sure what hotel or whatever they were taking these from. That big M for Hotel Manhattan, remember that? Many, many years of going to visit New York. The McGraw-Hill Building. Approaches through the bridges and tunnels, rather. See, one of the ships up there has just put out into the harbor and is getting ready to go, and the others will be following close behind. United Nations, brand spanking new, looking pretty spiffy. We're going to go from 59. Oh, sorry, I have to take care of my car warranty. I'll be right back. We're going to hop over to 1965. So we're in Times Square, and that great electronic ticker tape display there on the building was super new for the time, going around with the headlines of the news stories of the day. It's interesting if you go back and you try to look at match up some of these pictures today, you know, using Google Earth and that sort of thing. So much of it looks the same, but so many of the buildings are totally gone or have gotten brand new tenants. One of my favorite pictures, the detail on this was, it blows up really nice. You can see all the various shows that were in the movie theaters down the town, Castro convertibles. That had a big ad out there all throughout the time of the World's Fair. And if we zoom in on it a bit, you can make out the Unisphere on there, and because they're talking about how you have, remember their slogan, the first to conquer living space, because back then everybody was conquering outer space. But they also had a thing with the Unisphere, and they were saying the most comfortable mattresses in the world. So that's what I really get a kick out of is, again, if you take these pictures and really blow them up, you can see all sorts of details. And you can start dating these things by what was done in, you know, showing in the theaters. So you can see those magnificent men in their flying machines is there. All sorts of other different things. Harlow. Again, giant billboards that they would put up for the movies, the magnificent men, just great stuff. Again, digital clocks being real new. Now I know exactly what time it is down to the millisecond. I'm not sure exactly what date it is, but maybe Wayne, who's really good at figuring things out from shadows, someday could figure it out. And again, more of our just classic signs.
It was a magical place to walk through there. When I did in the mid 60s, a lot had changed since the mid 60s and the late 60s. It was a little bit different. But whenever we take people there or people are visiting, we tell them that the history of Times Square is still there. It's behind all the new billboards. So all the original stuff is behind all those billboards you see, all the original facades, and it's still a wonderful place.
It is. Back then in the 60s, though, I did not like to go there at night. It was not a great spot.
Yeah, I felt very safe with my dad, but yeah, it was getting a lot stranger as the years went by.
Yeah. Off to the right, see the fair with Yashica cameras. I had a Yashica years ago. They were neat cameras. And again, you can see all sorts of detail on these shots if you zoom in, that we could go and get the latest Bobby Vinton records where he sings the theme from Harlow. What was Harlow really like? So Just tremendous detail. And we could also say, hey, we're going to go to the Banford Beauty School. So you just pick up all sorts of neat views. And a cop out directing traffic out there. Good luck to him. I get a kick out of this because my first car looked very much like this. I had a 60 Chevy Impala, and mine was white. We didn't have the snazzy red two-tone one here, but brings back some big memories. Shraff's, great spot to go eat back then. Just all sorts of other memories of the past. NBC Studios looks pretty much the same today. You can go in there and take the tour that these folks were apparently going up, and they had the Rainbow Room, famous restaurant over there. Out at Rockefeller Center, down below, looks like everybody's really dressed very nattily for something. Let's go and take a quicker peek down at them. A band, who knows what they're playing? And down in the winter, of course, this is where the ice skating rink all goes in. So very, very popular part of New York City. We can look at St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is very grimy here. It has since been degrimed and had a lot of the pollution of many, many cars and buses taken down. Some of the fountains that go through Rockefeller Center. The RCA building. Prometheus, the sculpture that did that, did a lot of the pieces for the 1939 World's Fair, including Paul Manship, Fates of Time and Man, and others of the Zodiac and stuff out there. The Roseland Dance Hall, for folks who had ever heard of it, was a great spot to go to. And next door, a very period Chinese restaurant, Confucius.
That's where my mom and dad met there.
At the Roseland Dance City.
Yeah, they met there, yeah. And it's been demolished for a while now. They took the whole thing down, yeah.
You know if they went next door to get some exotic food?
Yeah, they went to all the nightclubs that were around, like the Copa and all the out of the way little clubs that you see portrayed in a lot of movies.
Right.
But they went to all those places. Yeah.
That's pretty neat. CBS Studios, television studio there. I think that's where Letterman ended up. And this particular day, we are going to see the Steve Lawrence Show, and his guest star is Lucille Ball, and they're taping Friday night at 8 p.m. So everybody get your tickets, and we can make sure we show up on time. Jack Dempsey, who was a famous fighter, he had a restaurant here with his name very prominently displayed. My grandfather was a big fan of his on my father's side, and he was very proud to take us there one day and meet Jack Dempsey. And we had to shake his hand and all that. And afterwards, I had to ask my grandfather exactly who was Jack Dempsey. I think I was 7 years old, not following the fights very much at the time. But it was my grandfather. Make sure you get his autograph. So I still have Jack Dempsey's autograph that I met when I met my grandfather. But my grandfather was super happy introducing us. Not so super happy when I admitted I had no idea who Jack was. Tan, don't burn with copper tone. Remember all those ads? Don't be a pale face. So I got a kick out of that. And again, you used to have all these big signs on the sides of the buildings. You can see a modern one for the China Bowl there, but a faded one off to the left. And there's a wonderful site for old New York. It's called Forgotten New York. And he likes to go around the city and find all those old billboards, and they're still visible. Some of them were covered over when another building was built next to it, and then that newer building gets torn down, and all of a sudden these old billboards get exposed for the first time in decades. So we're right at the heart of Times Square and 42nd Street. We ought to break out in song for 42nd Street now. Back over to see Prometheus again. The Americana Hotel. I got a real kick of this one because this is the hotel I stayed in for many, many of my business trips to New York. After Disney moved me out here, Warner Brothers would send me back. I'd go back to New York because our corporate headquarters is back there. And I actually have pictures of the Americana being built. But this was a hotel for many, many years I would stay in that was super convenient. So it was fun for me to spot it. And Times Square at night, all the lights coming on, My Fair Lady's being shown, great time. Was, as Joey mentioned, a real interesting spot, and it's very different to go there today, much more antiseptic and everything. It was really a very live and bustling place. More St. Patrick's, another one for the shoppers. We have George M. Cohen standing there, and again, the Castro with the Unisphere on it in the back. Looking up at the Empire State Building. I had never gone to the Empire State Building until 1969 or so, and actually it might have even been later. My college roommate and I both decided we had never been there and we needed to go. So we did all of the New York City stuff in one day. Statue of Liberty, Empire State Building, RCA tour. We went and played typical tourist. So the SS Bremen setting out to sea. The SS Rotterdam, another ship my folks went on numerous times. There's a new Rotterdam, which I think is about 2 to 3 times the size of this particular one. As I mentioned, my dad was in the shipping business, and they also became part-time travel agents. So they got super discounts, basically paying the tax only to go on cruises. So I have home movies of me and my brothers waving goodbye as my parents sailed off to happiness. Battery Park area of New York, well before the World Trade Center. Low building over on the far left is New York City Fire Department facility, where one of the fire boats is docked. My grandfather, not the Jack Dempsey, but the other grandfather, was a New York City battalion chief. So he asked if we would like to go down and take a ride on the New York City fire boat. My God, was that a thrill. I think I was about 10 at the time. So they still maintain the fire boats down there. Off to the right, you can see the ferry shelters over there. Ferries, of course, still go to Staten Island. Back at this time, they had ferries that would go over to between Brooklyn and going out over there to Staten Island, and they closed about a week after the Verrazano Bridge opened up.
Bill, that is so amazing, because my dad had me do the same thing. We rode on a fireboat.
That's neat. Yeah,
it was so nice, and a tugboat, which was the thrill of my life.
We actually, I was just going to funny you mention. I was just going to mention the tugboat. You used to see these things all over the city. I mean, they were just going up and down. There were a whole fleet. The Moran fleet was one of the big ones. My dad knew somebody from that because they would move his ships in and out of the harbor. So we got to go ride on a tugboat, and that was really neat being out there. And I still remember letting it blow the whistle. That was cool. You don't see tugboats in the New York area much at all anymore, because you don't have the same shipping that you did. But they were everywhere, all over the place.
Yeah. So were barges. There were barges everywhere.
We're going to see some of those. Yep. One of the ferries going back and forth. Again, the various parts of the skyline.
That's 75. Yeah, I'm sorry, Bill. That's 75 Pine Street, right in the middle. That big, and that's a condominium today. You can live there.
Is it today? Wow. And then almost all these piers are gone. There's a chart that you can weigh. I forget. You take the pier number and add something. It tells you what avenue that you're near. And then of course a couple of them had to be off the grid, just to throw you around. This is the United States USS Intrepid. For those that like to go to the Air Space Museum or anything, the Brooklyn Navy Yard was a very big operation, still going when this set of pictures was taken in 1965. One of my Boy Scout leaders was a lieutenant commander in the Naval Reserve, and he ended up saying, "Hey, would you guys like to go see what the Brooklyn Navy Yard and go on a destroyer escort with the reserves?" And that was just a real kick. And it was these tremendous dry docks and ancient old buildings that have been built over all the years. Of course, if you go and you watch the movie On the Town, It all starts with the ship that arrives in the dock, and they're all going out for their 24 hours in the town. But as a fan of ships, to be able to go and see things like the Intrepid, they would bring all these ships in and do these major overhauls. Brooklyn Navy Yard closed many, many years ago. It's still operated as a private operation right now. There are still some dry docks and stuff that still work. A lot of the warehouses and everything have been converted to things other than shipyard purposes. By the way, we're out taking the Circle Line tour around the city. If you ever get back to New York, it's a really great way to go and see so much of New York. Go take your tour around and see so much of it. You get a nice view that you're not going to get out from the city streets. The Chrysler and the Pan Am building, Pan Am having a big heliport on it at the time right here, which closed when a helicopter had a bad landing, snapped off one of the blades. The blade came down, killed people on the street. And that was the end of landing helicopters at the Port Authority. Unknown, this is the motor vessel Owl's Head, and it's a sledge ship. And you can see up there, there's something that says Department of Sanitation. Well, this was what they were doing, was basically taking all of the sludge was left over from the city sanitation things from all your sewage, where everybody pushes the handle, down it goes. Where's it end up? It ends up on the motor vessel Owl's Head, heading out to sea to dump it out in the ocean. So I don't believe they do this anymore, but this was a big particular thing where they had a whole fleet of ships owned by the city or leased by the city that they would just go out and dump sewage sludge out at sea, which makes upcoming shot sort of interesting. We have a marina that we're going to be passing. Here's another view of the SS United States. Again, the United States line, all these piers, everything are gone. The ship's still in Philadelphia, but it's in really, really sad shape. It's the SS Bremen, and that was tied up at the dock for the French line. So I guess the French and Germans got past their animosity and they could share a dock over there. That building on the very far left, that was a AT&T facility known as New York 7. And the young Mr. Cotter spent his summer job working for AT&T, long lines in that building. It had no windows in it, so it would withstand a nuclear blast. Now the package is being delivered. 1 second. Oh, they love our mail lady. The top of the building was open because that's where the microwave horns are to send and receive signals going in and out of the building. And the building was very interesting. It had no windows on it at all. So when I first got there, I was super excited to be working there and trying to figure out the job. And I asked somebody why all the elevators had red, yellow, and green lights next to them. Literally, they had traffic signals next to the elevators. And they said, oh, that's so when you're going out to lunch, if you see red, you need to bring an umbrella or a heavy coat. If it's green, it's a nice day. And the only guy that could see outside the building was the security guard that sat down at the front desk. And his job was to push the red, yellow, green button. And I can tell you, if he forgot to push the button and the people had to come down and found out that it was a red day and he had left it on green, man, he got the message real fast. The other thing I remember working in that building was the slowest elevators in the entire world. And as a result, when you got downstairs, you did not want to wait for the elevator to go back up. So fun spot to work. More of the city, Sheraton Hotel off to the left there. Oh, here's an example I use sometimes in my fun with Photoshop talks. The SS Bremen's in town. People are happily posing for a picture, but we really don't care who they are, so we just make them go away. And the United States again. This is kind of interesting one. You've got the Queen Elizabeth in the background. So you've got the SS United States on the far left, the SS Bremen on the right, and the Queen Elizabeth coming into port behind. The piers and everything in New York were so amazingly busy and popular that all these transatlantic liners are coming in. If you go there today, there's the passenger ship terminal, serves the few cruise ships that come in and out. But back then, this was still the big way to get to Europe. It was just the end of the ocean liner days and the beginning of jetliners taking over the business. But it was not uncommon to see, like in this particular shot, multiple liners all coming and going up and down the river at the same time. So here we see some of the tugboats warping the liner in. There was a tugboat strike during the 60s where they all thought they could shut down the port because obviously these guys are never going to be able to dock without us. Well, they found out the masters of the ships were pretty good, and the guys who were able to dock the Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Mary and the SS United States without tugboats. So the strike didn't last all that long once they realized we better get back to work because our bargaining power is not quite as strong as we thought. And kind of amazing to think what the skills it would take, because you can get some pretty interesting winds that come up and down the river. And then as you pull the ship in, the docks are acting as a windbreak, so everything would change. So my hat goes, anybody that's ever been on a boat with me knows I will hit the dock every time. So my hat goes off to the masters of these ships that could pull that stunt off. Queen Elizabeth was taken out of service, sold into Hong Kong, was going to become a floating hotel for a university, had a fire under mysterious circumstances, burned and capsized, and has since been salvaged and is totally gone. But it was looking pretty good this particular day. And all the people getting ready to get off the ship. And now the same day, in comes another ship. Now we got the SS Constitution coming into dock. So very, very busy time in New York shipping. Now, Joey mentioned barges. You can see a bunch of them off on the right-hand side. You had all sorts of barges, and they'd be parked all around the harbor. Just there would be moving stones around or various odds and ends. And we'll see if I get to them today. Pictures of just fleets of barges towed out, parked out there. Ellis Island, vacant at this point in time. It has since been restored, but this was the main point of entry for immigrants into the United States coming over from Europe for many, many years. Had gotten dilapidated, shut down, and more people are now coming in via plane, that sort of thing. So it sat there for years. I was able to take a tour of it in its unrestored days, sitting out there just as a abandoned wreck. And the pictures of that are amazing. I mean, people just literally left this stuff on their desk and walked away. So still the ledgers there, the keys to things, everything was still just sitting there right as of they had left it. Statue of Liberty, excuse me.
Yeah, I would recommend anyone coming to New York for the first time visit Ellis Island. It's an amazing place today.
Yeah, it's all been restored. Well, not all of it. Some of the buildings are still in ruins, but the part like the Great Hall and all that they did are just amazing. So the Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges. Again, we may take another view of the United Nations. Cornell Medical Center, giant hospital. Yankee Stadium, the original Yankee Stadium before they rebuilt it. And Longines clocks, 1:03 in the afternoon. I don't know if they're in town today or not. And for the famous joke, who's buried in Grant's tomb? There's Grant's tomb on the left, and big church on the right is St. John's the Divine. And we're coming back into put ourselves back at port. One more look at the ships here. And we'll hop it back down into Herald Square. So everybody remember the song, Remember Me to Herald Square. This is it. You can see all the round signs here. This was New York City said, well, we're not going to have 6th Avenue. We're going to have the Avenue of the Americas, which I don't know today. If you tell anybody to take me Avenue of the Americas, how many would know where it is? But to New Yorkers, it was always 6th Avenue.
Yeah.
And let's see, we're going to hop over. We'll go back to 1961 right now. We're going to go see some more silliness. So Radio City Music Hall, facade had not changed much at all. For the Disney fans out there, we're seeing Disney's The Absent-Minded Professor has a giant Easter show. And that was the neat thing about going to Radio City Music Hall. You had a full-length Hollywood movie, presented in a really nice setting with a giant screen, But you also had a tremendous stage show with the Rockettes, and they would come out, have all sorts of things. In this particular one, the Easter Bunny would come out, do all sorts of things. The organ would play, and you'd get probably about a 30-40 minute show of the entertainment before the movie. So Radio City's a great venue. They give a great tour there of all their turntables and lifting stages and everything else that's out there. So this one here is the American Metal Climax Building, which, you know, heck of a name, and you wonder what on earth the Metal Climax company made. Just more views going around the Radio City area. Time Life Building. I worked again when we had all the various mergers with Warner Brothers. We ended up being partner with Time Life, and one of the neat things I had was spending time computerizing the photo archives for the Time Life Corporation. They were just getting into digital scanning in that, and I was they had bought a system from the outside that didn't work, and I was brought in to help fix it. So you can imagine being a photo nut and being told, hey, how would you like to help supervise the archiving of the Time Life photo collection? So in between my computer stuff, I say, okay, we got to go test it. So let's go test it on all the pictures we have of the '64 World's Fair and start scanning those and others. So it was a great time in that. Famous restaurant in New York at the time, La Fonda del Sol. I've actually had a number of people chase me down for pictures that have done things in the lost restaurants of New York. It was part of that complex. This is kind of interesting. If you've ever stayed at the Hilton Hotel on 6th Avenue, which I stayed in later years many times as well, this is it. The old type steam shovels that were out there digging this thing down. And again, you don't see this sort of equipment used very much anymore. The other ones are the things they use today can take so much more per load, the way they can dig these things out. But as a kid, I can remember just being fascinated. There was a book, I can't remember the name of it, about a steam shovel, and you know, he was doing his best to do his job, and I just remember as a kid being thrilled by it. And you can see they're digging out some other building down below, the remnants of it, and that's the story of New York. Whatever was there is going to make way for whatever is coming. Park Sheridan Hotel in the background. Just more of the Hilton going up. Having to bolster the walls up as it's going down.
And it was a purely New York City thing to do, to stop by the little holes that they would drill in the wood and look at the stuff going on down there.
Yeah, with all the post no bill signs on the outside, right?
Yep.
So who wants to see a parade? Anybody want to see a parade? Well, you're going to see one whether you like it or not. We're going to go back and we're going to see the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and it is now November 24th, 1960. My dad would take us to the parade year after year after year. We really got a kick out of it, and it was, you can see more of it on TV. You know, you get unobstructed views, but it was not the same, and we really enjoyed it. And what the particular thing was nice, he would take me and my brothers out, and I mentioned online, I had a picture of a young boy sitting on a newspaper. The ground was always cold. We would be freezing out there, but my dad would save up about a week's worth of newspapers, bring them out there so we could sit on the ground and not freeze our butts off, literally, and also not get our clothes all dirty sitting on the dirty sidewalk. And then when the parade would come, we would jump up. And we would get there really early, so we were right on the street, right at the barricades for it, and we'd freeze our butts off. But when we got home, there was a wonderful turkey dinner that my grandparents and my mom had made, and the parades remain just an absolute wonderful childhood memory for me. So we see Macy's, they're leading it off here, and rightfully so, being the sponsors of the parade. All sorts of groups, like out here in LA, we have people that come from all around the country to perform in the Rose Parade. Well, they have the same thing for New York. These are not all New York bands or orchestras. They were, you know, different school groups that come from around. And you can see the famous balloons starting to come down the road. Mr. Tom Turkey. He's a big bird. And I believe this balloon here was advertising around the world in 80 days. Radio City brought out some of the Rockettes. I am what I am, and I am Popeye the Sailor Man. So he, big thing, the Popeye cartoons were real big in the 60s on local TV. Local kid show showed them all the time. So coming and seeing Popeye coming down the road was great fun.
And they used to, I'm sorry, they used to fly them a lot higher, right, Bill?
Yeah, that the wind would take them. You know, they had that issue of them getting away, and they had an accident where they hit a street light, fell on a lady, and after that, they now really rein them in a lot closer. So you can see here, this band came all the way from West Virginia to participate in the parade. They would also bring in the stars from Hollywood. So we had the stars of Showboat at the time coming down the road, and they would do some musical numbers for you and entertain. So the parades were always great fun. We went to them, as I said, a whole bunch of years. You can also see New York at Christmas time. This particular Christmas being, let's see, 1959. So where we saw that band playing before has now been turned into an ice rink. And I always got a kick of how they decorated with all those miniature lights and all the trees back there. And it was just a great spot to go. The famous Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center, a giant tree harvested, brought in and decorated every year. This slide obviously very, very dark, but try to do what I could to give you an idea of some of the light fixtures and things that were there. We'll zip through these because they're not particularly wonderful. But you can see just how big that tree is by how many buildings that stood behind it. Working for Time Warner, we ended up having a building in there that directly overlooked the ice skating rink and the Christmas tree. And it was a great spot looking down from here and just enjoying the Christmas views. Looking over to Saks Fifth Avenue, one of the premier department stores. St. Patrick's off to the side, Saks all decorated. More of the decorations in Rockefeller Center. And we hop over to Macy's. They went way out of their way every year to put up a gigantic Christmas display. You can see all the mannequins and things that they did there. And these, again, are all temporary. The stonework of the building is behind it. You can see where the wooden facades were notched out to go over it. And these would go up just for Christmas. And they would pretty much, you'd get to Thanksgiving weekend, everything would be quiet. You come back after Thanksgiving, there'd be a tremendous toy land with Santa Claus, and the Christmas decorations were up. It was an amazing transformation that they worked all Thanksgiving weekend to get these things put in place for you. Be interested to know if any of these figures survived anywhere. And some eye candy for the old car fans. Let's see what year we'll jump to now. We'll jump to 1961 here. For fellow airplane fans, this is a JFK that you will not see anymore because all of these empty areas have been filled in by parking garages. A lot of the terminals have torn down, and the whole thing has changed. So there is the brand new TWA terminal. We're looking back at this September 26, 1961 to be exact. You can now go out there and stay at the TWA hotel. But amazing building, just you know, everything back before is square, functional. This one looks like a flying bird. We're gonna hop around to again, I took them whatever order they were processed in. We're sitting in the box, but we're back in the city. One of the tugboats going by. Back out to the airport. Over in the far left is the American Airlines terminal back out there. They had a wonderful tile facade on it for years until the building was redone and ruined. And you can see some of the artwork here that's over on the right that they used to have all around the facility. We're looking out from the Pan Am terminal, which is now gone. as is Pan Am itself. So old control tower in the background there. This is the Pan Am terminal inside one of the old electronic display boards with the mechanical letters that would flip over and let you know where the flights are going and what gates they were going to. And they had all these tremendous fountains out there. They had chapels you could go out to. You had fountains you could walk around. All of these have been taken out and converted into more functional use at the time. But it was a big thing to go out there. You can see a walkway up here that you could go out to the airport and go up to observation lounges that would take you out to the roofs of some of the terminals. And I think you had to pay a quarter, if I remember right. There was a turnstile you would walk through, drop in a quarter, and you could walk in and watch the planes at play. And one of my grandfathers liked to take us out there, and we would just talk and pretend we knew where the planes were going and what the people were doing. It was a great fun for a quarter. Pan Am, great terminal, great airline. I flew many miles on Pan Am around the world.
We used to go to church there too, Bill. They had a chapel called Our Lady of the Skies, and it was the Virgin Mary sitting on a propeller.
Yeah, I think the chapel may still be there. I'm not sure. Real quick, two shots here. Again, just shows how department stores changed. Macy's, 1962, Mother's Day. They had just floral displays from one end of the store to the other, just decorating the whole thing up to get mom to come in and feel comfortable and spend her money for Mother's Day. So let's see, I had some others. Let's go back again to let's just go back to Idlewild Airport, as it was known in '59 for a moment, and then we're going to hop back to the 40s. So again, this just showed you how much the thing changed. You do not find this is the International Arrivals building. Right now, there's train lines that run around the people mover transit system that goes around. A lot of this stuff's been taken out, but this is going back in those days. Again, the fountains were out there. Look at how empty the space is out there with all those walkways and everything. And again, boy, if you like old airplanes, you get right here, Transcontinental Airlines got Air France, Swiss Air, but you had all these great propeller-driven planes right at the days the jets were coming in and taking over. Cubana Airlines, I'm amazed that there were still airlines flying between the United States and Cuba apparently at this particular time. And in the background, you have American Airlines plane in its old color scheme. And more fountains and just different. So let's go back and see some views from the 40s. And things will have changed a bit from back then. We're looking over towards the Chrysler building. Every time I hear it, I hear Miss Hannigan yelling, "This place has got to shine like the top of the Chrysler building." Over the East River, you go and look at it today, tremendous change with skyscrapers and bigger buildings on either side. Empire State Building, and looking up at the river out there. And the air is not so good in this particular shot. And again, everybody back then had their own incinerators. Your superintendent, you throw the stuff down the chute, he'd burn it down in the basement. It would pollute the air. Really nice view here at Central Park. This particular view, the air is looking pretty good looking up the river. One of the old Circle Line tours here on the left. What's really interesting is this is a United States troop ship coming back from World War II. If you look at the deck, we can zoom in a little on it. You can just see it is absolutely just packed with soldiers coming back. So these guys have been over fighting World War II. This is their first visit back to the United States from us fighting all that. And what a tremendous experience this had to be for them all getting back into New York City. So just amazing that some of these things have been captured in these sort of random shots. Taking a ferry ride out, and that's another ferry going the opposite direction. Statue of Liberty hasn't changed too much from the outside, although the stonework has been cleaned up. Back to Prometheus. And we can go see it again at Christmas time. So he's jumped all over here this particular year. And who wants to go visit the Bronx Zoo? And I don't know if anybody actually knew the full name was the New York Zoological Park. To us, it was always the Bronx Zoo.
Great place.
It is a great spot, really great. A lot of the trams from the 1939 World's Fair ended up going out and being used at the Bronx Zoo. And then they borrowed some of them to come back and use them for taking VIPs for tours of the 64 Fair construction site. But the Bronx Zoo is, it is really the biggest reason I would think to go visit the Bronx. It's really an oasis out there.
Yeah.
And dusk is now falling on the city. I like the way the light reflecting off the building there. Really nice tripod shot this guy did, giving the water sort of a nice glossy look to it. This picture was, all these pictures are super dark and again, photoshopped to the rescue. And we feel like one of those travel logs as our sun sets and we fade off into the distance. Let's get some views from the 30s. I can have some of those we can find here. Ended up with so many more pictures. Well, I was mentioning the Statue of Liberty. Let's just stick in that 64 1 second and we can go see some interesting views of the Statue of Liberty that you probably would not get today. So we're going to take a ride out to the Statue of Liberty, and it's looking pretty nice. The stonework looks a little cleaner in this particular shot. You can see Ellis Island again off in the background. And then, whoops, the lady's looking pretty graceful, looking back towards the city. A barge has gone aground up on the island there. And now we're inside the Statue of Liberty, going up to take a tour, go take the stairs or elevators up. And then my brother Jim and I just had a real kick. We went there a number of times as a kid, and we saw the walkway that would take you out to the torch that you used to be able to go out on. And my brother really, really wanted to sneak out and try to see if he could get out onto the torch. My father told him if he tried it, he would not sit down until he turned age 18. So that was the end of my brother's trip out to the torch. But you got up to the top and it was kind of disappointing in a way because those windows, I don't think had been cleaned since the last time the torch had, since the statue had been built. And they were very, very hard to see out of, very, very dirty and very kind of semi-opaque. But you were still up there and you got to see, say you did it. To the Circle Line tours going around. Again, the Circle Line is a great way to go see the city. You can go past Ellis Island, Battery Park area of Brooklyn. You can see a bunch of other Circle Line boats, ferries. Not a good day to be breathing in New York. America's favorite boat ride.
We also took the Day Line, Bill. Did you ever take the Hudson River Day Line?
Yeah, going up towards Bear Mountain.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that was a big thing for my parents. It was their school trip, so I would go up to Bear Mountain, that sort of thing. This is called the High Bridge. It was brought in as an aqueduct bringing water into the city, and it's a water tower, cleverly disguised. Did the Dayliner still go, Joey?
I don't think the Dayliner, I think they went out of business. The Circle Line still runs, though.
Yeah. This one I got a kick out of knowing how polluted the rivers were at the time. Look at these kids swimming off this rotting old dock out there. So this is the time they had all the warnings. Do not eat any of the fish you catch in this river. I mean, and that's if you could catch a fish that hadn't died. In upstate New York, GE was happily throwing PCBs into the river at their transformer plant and DDT into the river. I mean, it was terrible what they had done to the Hudson River. Much, much better now. But at that time, I guess if you had no place to swim, hell, you jumped in a river, but not me. You also had a lot of railroad cars were taken across the river. So we have one of the ventilation towers for the tunnels there. But then you have what they call car floats, and they would put railroad cars, bring them across over to Jersey. Another marina. These marinas became very much needed in the days of 9/11, helping to get people in and out of Manhattan when all the bridges and trains and everything were closed down. A lot of people took their pleasure boats out of these marinas and were able to get people back in and off the island. So just kind of sad thought of happy days then and sadder things later on.
Yeah.
George Washington Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge. Carol and I have walked across the Brooklyn Bridge a number of times and really enjoyed it. Again, if you get back to New York, it's a great way to do it. My family has a big tie to the Brooklyn Bridge. If you read the movie The Great Bridge, and it goes all about the wonderful buildings of the bridge, it talks about how there were so many deaths on the bridge, and then they had a period of time where nobody got killed for almost 30 days or something like that, until a cable snapped and knocked a worker named McCann to his death. Well, that happened to be my great grandfather, and so every time I go back to New York, you know, there was my relatives all talked about it. You know, the book said he died instantly, and they said no, he lived the day in terrible pain. But you know, so kind of interesting Cotter connection back, or a McCann connection back to the bridge.
Wow.
Yeah. And then a random fire. If anybody knows the street, let me know if you happen to identify it. But the photographer happened to catch New York Fire Department doing their best to put out the blaze. And all the fire escapes have made New York so memorable in so many movies over the years.
Yeah, we used to sleep out. We used to sleep on them in the summertime.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. People have mentioned that they would do that. You actually did it, huh?
Yeah, we did. Because they're just there was, and when this was when I was growing up, and my parents did it a lot more in their day. But even in the 60s, we didn't have an air conditioner.
No. We can go back to New York and all meet at the Hampton Hotel. And nice New York City subway, the graffiti starting to show up. Hop over to the Natural History Museum and see some of the dioramas. I do not know what parade this particular one is. There, if anybody again recognizes it or anything, but they're coming down the street, and not as obviously as big as the St. Patrick's Day or anything, because they don't have all the barricades out. Over to the UN. Let me find, I had some neat ones here of the 30s, and then we might wrap up in a moment. Where are my 30s shots? More pictures of ships. The 30s, I must have in another folder someplace. All right, who wants to go to Coney Island?
I do.
Joey's jumping up and down. Me. So Coney Island, the Cyclone roller coaster. It's actually interesting. I posted this picture on Facebook, and some woman actually, you know, instantly put up as a fake picture because the lady used to look so different from the people in the background. And I had to explain it. It's called depth of field, and you can set your focus just like Carol's done on her her Zoom picture today. You can set your camera to be in focus on the people in the foreground, and with depending on what f-stop you're using, the background can get you know, out of focus. And it makes you know, your subject in front that much more prominent and draws the eye to it. But we're out at Coney Island right now, by the way, in July 1958. The world's craziest ride. Lots of fun. This guy looks so thrilled, doesn't he, to be working there and selling tickets to the world's craziest ride. I was thinking maybe he ought to go in for the ride and, you know, get some excitement. Steeplechase Park in the background. Steeplechase was a great old amusement park. Had all sorts of rides that today OSHA or the various agencies would never let you go to. My brothers and I would talk about some of the horrible things they would do inside. They had a dome that spun around. It was sort of raised in the center, and you would sit on, and this thing would start spinning around and would pick up speed. And the idea was, could you hang on to the very top, or it would fling you off? And when it flung you off, it flung you right into a wall. I mean, it hurt when you hit the thing, and it got up to a pretty good speed. They had a fun house that you were going to, and it had a set of metal rails around a set of stairs, and the stairs would be going up and down at different levels, so you'd be getting thrown from side to side. So as you're getting thrown side to side, what would you do? You'd reach out and grab the metal rails, right? No, that's where they shot the electric charge through the handles of the metal rails. Well, now if you decide you do not want to go on the on the moving stairs with the metal rails and would block it up, a dwarf, a little person would come out and hit you with basically an electric cattle prod to get you to move. And they would duck back inside a door and slam the door behind them. It was an incredible spot to think about going today. They had a great name, the steeplechase. They had a mechanical ride that would run around the buildings on these mechanical horses. The idea was you could theoretically make your horse go faster by leaning into the turns. It was a bone-jarring thing that would take the fillings out of your teeth. It was a hell of a ride. Unfortunately, Donald Trump's father bought Steeplechase, tore it down. He was going to develop it, and he was never able to do what he wanted with the property. That's where the parachute jump from the 39 World's Fair is now. But Steeplechase, just a memory.
Bill, did you ever hear the story of what Fred Trump, when he was about to tear it down, he had gotten a lot of the Coney Island kids to come that lived in the area and throw rocks through the windows.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, what a shame. Yeah, I mean, Coney Island's a shadow of what it was, but you had all these great roller coasters. You had the Cyclone, what was the other one? Thunderbolt? And,
Thunderbolt, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather took us out there, the Jack Dempsey grandfather took us back out when they were taking all the streetcars out of Brooklyn. They had them all stacked up in a giant barn out in Coney Island. And it was part of the barn was a Ferris wheel, and the back was all these streetcars. And they wanted to come and see the streetcars, the trolleys, one last time. And my father convinced a guy to fire up the the merry-go-round rather. So my brother Jim and I were the only kids on the merry-go-round going around and around. We felt just so damn special beyond words. Catch the rings on the carousel. Gotta go, of course, to Nathan's, and Nathan's hot dogs being a big thing with the big thing where Joey Chestnut eats more hot dogs in one day than I have in a year. And as Carol knows, I like hot dogs, but I could not do what that guy does. The Wonder Whirl wheel is still there, I believe. Is that correct, Joey?
Yeah, it's still there. And in the 80s, the guy that owned the Wonder Wheel, he said to us that some of the steeplechase horses were stored underneath it.
Wow, I wonder if they're still there or not.
They may be. I think the Coney Island Museum has one or two of them, but there were a lot of them. So
that's crazy. Let me just jump out of here 1 second. I'm going to go look and find just another folder in my computer. For a second. What I do is when I restore pictures, I move them into a area of the fully restored ones. The ones that I'm still working on, I have in another drive. So I'm just hopping over there 1 second. New York City. Okay, we're going to take a look over to New York City from 1940 again. So we're looking up to the top of the Empire State Building, brand new, and doesn't have a lot of soot on it yet. Here's the old post office building down here, and you can see off to the side the Horn and Hardart Automat. For folks that are not familiar with the Automat, it was a tremendously wonderful, fun spot to go as a kid. You'd walk in and drop money through a slot, and you'd open a little glass door, and you would take out your food. And when you close the door, it was on a disc that would rotate, and somebody working in the kitchen area back there would come and put another piece of food out there. So you could go and get hot food. You could come and put your money into it and take out your thing of beef stew or a fried egg or whatever, and then you could walk down. My brother and I both really got a kick out of the chocolate cake dispensary and trying to see, just how fast it took them. If I bought a piece of cake, and turn it around. And then they were smart, you know, you could turn it around, it would be like a three-way rotator. The next one would come up with another piece of chocolate cake. So Heart and Hearteds were real popular both in New York and in the Pennsylvania, I think Philadelphia areas. Sadly all gone, but there was one right down the street from my dad's office in Lower Manhattan. We would go to all the time, and boy, that was the greatest thing in the world, getting a food out of the automat.
I loved it. Loved
They
it.
were great. Looking up again at the Empire State Building, you can see, unfortunately, sometimes some of these old negatives start to oxidize the silver and it starts going, and end up with some visible issues. Looking down, this is at the Hotel New York, the Hotel York rather. That's the 7th Avenue and 37th Street down below. Streets are a little bit more crowded today. This is the bus terminal. You had Greyhound buses here, and this is the bus terminal at 34th and 7th. I think if I remember right, if I zoom in on this, let's see. Yeah, basically they were trying to see right on here. There's a display for the New York World's Fair, to and through by Greyhound. So that was their big promo, that you could take the bus to New York and see the fair in New York by the Greyhound buses that were there. So all across the country, they would, just like in '64, Greyhound put logos on them to promote the '64 World's Fair. In 39 and 40, Greyhound buses across the U.S. Promoted the '39 World's Fair. The Hotel York, I just love these cars. Again, if anybody can identify them. Some of these have oxidized a bit, so they're a bit dark, but look at this great old cab out here, right?
Oh,
Horsheim Shoes across the street. And of course, everybody dressed up back then. Again, more vintage cars. You had the Paramount Theater. I think we could see what this is at Broadway and West 43rd Street.
43rd, yeah.
So we look over here, vintage New York City bus, but we see that Dick Powell and Jane Froman are starring in something that starts with "I Want Something." So somebody can go to IMDb and look and see what the Dick Powell was in 1940. So Joan Blondell and Dick Powell starring in something here. So again, just great vintage stuff. We're going to the old Times Square. So we'll zoom in a little bit here. Planters Peanuts down below is where we, in later years, we saw the Castro convertible sign. But again, look at these great old theaters here, and names that people just don't remember. Wallace Beery, Leo Carrillo, starring in MGM's Wyoming film I don't particularly remember.
Yeah, and Bonds is still there.
Yeah, more men wear Bond clothes than any other clothes in America. I don't know if that's still true. Down below, down the street, you can see Bing Crosby starring in a movie, and just, again, great stuff. The Wayland's drugstores, old cars and buses. The amount of detail you can pull, like you can look right here at the sign for Times Square, Broadway. Over here, Planters Peanuts, a bag a day for more pep. The amount of detail you can pull out of these old negatives is just truly astonishing. Coca-Cola, the pause it refreshes. I love working on these old pictures because they bring so many of these details to life. 7th Avenue, West 36th Street. Looking out from the Chrysler Building, from the Empire State Building towards the Chrysler Building. And we're unknown street, but we have a 1940 Packard. I mean, look at the size of that. It was actually interesting. I was working in an accident yesterday, and somebody was on about, this car is destroyed. And it was. It was pretty, I think they got hit about 20, 25 miles an hour. And this guy was like, back then, cars were made to last. And I said, yeah, but cars like this were made to last. And he was talking about how he ripped a fender off a car. You could go buy another fender and put them on. And I keep trying to tell people, back then, they took all the force of the accident and transmitted it right into the passenger compartment. And how many people died of the steering column collapsing their chest. So,
Yeah.
yeah, cars today may get destroyed, but everybody walked away from the accident yesterday. And if they showed you a picture of it, you go, oh crap, nobody's gonna walk away from that one without a pain. Nope, didn't need an ambulance or anything. So I love the styling of these cars, but I frankly would feel much safer today in a 2021 Toyota than I would in a 1940 Packard. Again, this one's sort of damaged, but looking at it across the city. And this is where I get into I haven't restored all these. So you can see the difference between restored and unrestored, lots more dust and dirt and everything. And I'm gonna have to blot out by hand and take. Let's see, we have one more set of pictures here before we go away. I had some, okay, we'll go back to 1939 real quick. This one, again, I tell you, I'm going to just do a couple of these, but I'm going to save these for classic ocean liners. But this is one of my favorite rolls of film. The Queen Mary has come to visit in 1939. And the Queen Mary, of course, is out here now in Long Beach. Its fate is unknown. It's been closed for the pandemic. Maintenance has been deferred, and the poor ship is rusting away at the dock. But 1939, Queen Mary was the way to get across the Atlantic. I mean, it was the ship that you would sign up for and take a trip over. So great old taxi out there. Queen Mary's coming into port down the Hudson. At her dock for Cunard, White Star Line. I mean, it's a real thrill to still be able to go and visit the Queen Mary today. And I just hope that somehow you're able to save the poor old girl before she's gone. Other things for New York, let's see. Again, 1939, the old tugboats.
Love them.
Yeah, doesn't it bring back some memories, Joey?
I think this has become my favorite photo in your show, Bill.
Oh, really? Yeah, they had those big old hemp bumpers in the front, all sorts of,
yeah. And they were crusted over with barnacles, and I could remember when they rode me on it, the spray and the smell of the harbor.
Yeah, you look at these, and I keep thinking it was one of the Barbra Streisand movies. Was it Funny Girl? I think it was.
Funny Girl, yeah.
And I can't sing, as everybody knows, but you stand up there and the wind's in your face and everything. Great fun. Back behind all the barges, you can see. Let's just zoom in a little here. It's funny. There's a guy down the street that one of my neighbors is John Manning. I'll have to go and show him a picture of his namesake barge out there. But yeah, you had two basically big tugboat companies who were rivals in New York, and they were just big time stuff out there. So all sorts of other ships, all gone. The American Hawaiian Line is a ship over there for I'll be bringing pineapples or something into the city. Again, more. That's the SS New York, an old ocean liner. You had all sorts of things too. This is a tanker called the Laconda, and a smaller ship, the A.J. Patmore. And here again, more sailing ships. This is the Charles Ashley, and they were fishing trawlers, and they would go out into the local waters. I remember back when Sheepshead Bay was a big area for sports shipping, fishing rather, and the shipping boats would go out there into the local waters and bring fish back for Fulton's Fish Market. So, maybe Joey's father is one of the guys unloading the crates off of these things all day at the
probably fish. He probably was. That was the famous pier that he was working on. That's the South Street area now, South Street Seaport area.
Right.
Bill, do you remember the hospital ship that was docked there for many years?
Yes, I do. I have. Let's see if I can find a picture of it real quick. Let me just go. The Hope.
Yeah, it had a name. I can't think of the name.
Yeah, let's see if I have it real quick. I posted a picture of it over in New Jersey, being refurbished at a shipyard over there. So let's see if I have it here.
Tom Brooks says the Mercy.
Yeah, there was the Hope and the Mercy. There were two of them. I think I know where I might have it here. 1 second. The ones I've been looking at have all been full-size pictures, and I have others that are smaller ones I use for Facebook postings. Well, let's see if I have it here. Oh, for mercy.
Yeah, that was parked on that dock for years.
Yeah, I can't find it right here, but and I actually have another one. There's another ship. It was a ferry that was outfitted as a floating hospital. They could move it to other parts of the city.
Yeah.
So let me just stop here so I don't go too long. Again, I'm going to go back to the ships. I mean, I have so many of these pictures of these great ships. That's for the Europa, you know, the Isle de France. I mean, just so someday I'm going to do maybe 2 weeks from now do ships. So I hopefully if I go back, I don't find too many mistakes. I want a divorce, Dick Powell. Okay, when I first saw it, Glenn Barker saying I want a divorce, I was thinking, oh, Glenn's having a bad day. But okay, I want a divorce. Great, thank you. So let me just go through the comments, and if anybody would like to chat, 1 second. Yeah, come on over, WPAX, the amusement park jingle. That was, like I said, all the comic books, it was the spot to go. Oh, Archie Comics also had coupons. Okay. See? Chuck Barris, you had that famous song, Palisades Park. I mean, you still hear it on top radios. Yeah, Glenn Barker's saying, Joey, you're going to go on IMDb and add your dad in as uncredited.
Yeah, a lot of people are telling me that. I should do that.
You know, I actually had a reason to look at IMDb yesterday for something, and I said, oh, I'll look up myself and see if they put down my appearances on Behind the Attraction. And I found out, I thought I was in 4 episodes. I found out I'm in 5. I haven't watched the Castle one yet, so I have to go watch that one. Yeah, the USS Norway, the USS France became the USS Norway, and back then, one thing I should have mentioned about all the piers, and when I worked at AT&T, we were right near the water. And my very first week there, the guys all saying, "Do you want to go down and get a free lunch?" And I said, "Free lunch sounds good. Where are we going?" "Well, we're going down to the ships." And we could walk down. We were on 10th Avenue. You'd walk over to the ships, and you would pay money. I think it was 50 cents or maybe 75 cents, and we'd go to the Longshoremen's Retirement Fund, so making sure Joey's dad got his pension. And you could go on board the ships, and you would take a tour of the ships, and you know, they would then blow the whistle and make sure everybody got off, all ashore, going ashore. But it was really great. And I asked the guy, well, how do you get the free lunch? And he said, this works really great. You look through a whole big bunch of people in a room eating, and you just walk in and start eating. And it really worked out well. We'd walk into one of the rooms, and there'd be this whole spread of food out there, and you know, we'd just start eating like crazy. And people are like, hey, how are you? Go, oh, great, really looking forward to this. And they said, oh yeah, who are you with? And we said, oh, we're with the McDougalls. And I go, well, this is the Smith party. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong room. I didn't know that. You'd walk out of the next room, you know, start eating everything you could, and somebody would say, hey, I don't recognize you. You in our tour? Yeah, this is the McDougal tour, right? No, this is the Jones tour. Oh, I'm sorry. And you could basically walk from room to room to room, eat yourself silly, then go back to, you know, walk off the ship and go back. So I remember one of the guys asked how I liked it, and I said, well, it wasn't free. It cost me 50 cents, you know, and but it was great fun. It worked out great. So when you see movies like The Wedding Crashers and everything, it was something that these guys from AT&T had down pat. And I really liked it because we got to go on all those ships. So we would go on the United States. Again, I never sailed on the United States, but I got to visit it. So the United States, the Europa, all those classical liners. For 50 cents to get a you know, free tour of the ship for an hour and a free lunch, it was a hell of a deal. Is that Ellis Island? Yeah, I mentioned Ellis Island. I do have shots that I can do another time of the Ellis Island unrestored, and that's great. Jane, okay, first time when it talks. Do you live in New York or gathered all these pictures over the year? I was, if Jane's still with us, I don't know if
I actually answered her
Oh,
directly,
okay.
but I don't know. You can still do it if you want.
Yeah, I don't see her here, but yeah, I'm from New York, and Disney moved me out here in '76. But I ended up working for Warner Brothers, and we had our corporate offices there. My parents are still there. So I would be in New York. I would be flying to New York this week, probably tomorrow, if it wasn't for the pandemic. So I absolutely love New York. And as I mentioned in my notes about the talk, you can take the boy out of Brooklyn, but you can't take Brooklyn out of the boy. So
Indeed.
yeah, yeah, AT&T Long Lines, America the Beautiful Circle Vision. That was the big ship we had over that was seen in Hawaii, dropping the Trans-Pacific cable into the ocean. And Long Lines was a fantastic spot to work. It was really a wonderful, wonderful company to work for. AT&T back in the 60s was still Ma Bell. And this, I mentioned before about picture phones. When I worked in that building, I went into one of the closets and there was a picture phone sitting there. And I said, oh, wow, picture phone. I remember it from the World's Fair. And the guy said, oh, yeah, we used to have that so we could test the circuits between here and the other AT&T facilities if people are having problems with their picture phones. But, you know, nobody uses picture phones anymore. And I said, oh, it's too bad there isn't still one around. And the guy says, well, call the other offices. They may have one. Be right with you, Wayne. So I called, and the guy in Washington, D.C. said, oh, yeah, I got one here. So for our lunch hours, we spent time trying to figure out how to get my picture phone to talk to his picture phone. And there were no manuals. They had manuals, but trying to get them was the next to impossible. So we sat down and we figured out you needed 12 voice circuits to do one picture phone circuit. So we just took 12 voice circuits out of revenue service and dedicated a dedicated video link between New York City and Washington, D.C. And we got to work, and it was really fun. And, you know, I could, hey, how are you doing in Washington? It's fine. How's the weather? Fine. And then we realized my picture phone didn't work because we had nothing else to say or do. I mean, we were looking at each other, but we could still talk to each other just like we were talking over the phone. But I still think I might have the distinction of being one of the last people to use an AT&T picture phone for a real live picture phone service. Wayne, you had something? Then I think Greg has his hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering if that windowless building was the microwave site for the link to the Bell Pavilion.
Yeah, it was one of the ways that they would get everything from the fairgrounds in. We had the building was called New York 7, the AT&T facility. A New York Telephone, a subsidiary, had a switching center in there below, but it was the main way to go in and out of the New England area. And basically what we would do there is if you called and said you had static on your call to San Francisco, I would call an AT&T office, say in St. Louis, check to see whether or not that line had static between me and St. Louis. If it was, then it became St. Louis and San Francisco's problem. But we would basically triangulate getting all the way down that way to try to figure out where it was, and then send a repair crew out to the repeater station that would do it. And we had this giant map. It looked like something out of a Hollywood movie showing where all the circuits were and what was green, what was red, or whatever. And I had the distinction of causing a major walkout of the AT&T workers across the entire United States in 1970. We had tags on the equipment that would say when they were out of order. And the idea was you would, go through the tags periodically and look for ones that have been out of order a long time and go fix them. But the tags, I mean, some of these, I was looking, this one's been out of order for 4 years. So I made the recommendation, why don't we tag by month that they go out, so we can see all the January tags are yellow, the February tags are blue, and after a while we couldn't see any more yellow tags. So the manager thought that was a great idea, just wonderful, and he sent the secretary out to go count all the tags and count it by months. So she went out and started writing down 6 Januaries, 4 Februaries, and the union said, you can't touch the equipment, you're not in our union. She was in a different union. And she said, well, I've got to do this, and Phil Cotter wants to know how many of these tags are by month. So the guy says, okay, that's it, we're done, and they walked out. Everybody in that entire building walked out on the place. And then it spread all up and down the eastern seaboard. People are now walking out of all the AT&T facilities. And I'm going, oh crap, I need this job. What do? I can't walk out. So I'm walking out, I'm not in the union. It was a summer job, I don't get paid. So I actually lived in that building for about 4 days, couldn't go home. We broke into the cafeteria, broke the locks off the freezers, and ate nothing but cheeseburgers, I think, for 4 days, until the union finally decided that they'd won their point, got some money, and came back. But it was a great building to work in. Lots of other weird stories. So sorry, Greg, you had your hand up, and then we got Tom and Kathy.
Yeah, I wanted to recommend a movie if you wanted to see Coney Island back in the 50s. It's a very famous film called The Little Fugitive, and I posted the link to YouTube. It is a historic film in the National Film Registry made by a photographer and his photographer wife, Morris Engel. And it was done with this camera that he literally built as a handheld camera. He worked with a very young, oh gosh, who's the guy? The 2001 the director.
Uh, 2001
you know.
Space Odyssey?
Stanley
Yeah.
Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick when he
Yeah.
was a student, and it's about a little boy whose brother's friends decide to play a trick on him, and he thinks he killed his brother, and he runs away, gets on the subway, and ends up in Coney Island. And while he's there, he just hangs out and he goes on rides and he goes on the pony rides and stuff. And so you see in this very, very intimate, small film in a very charming way, the world of Coney Island and the world of a little kid in New York in those days. I absolutely just adore this film. I watched it when I was younger, reminded me of because I had an older brother, reminded me of when I was a kid. And I just think this is a movie everybody should see.
Oh, great. I see the link. I'll take a look at it.
Hey, Greg, didn't you live in New York for a while?
Well, I lived in it for about 4 years when I was
How old
little,
were you?
and so yeah, and my brother wasn't all that nice to me either. So I could see this happening, going
How
off
old
by
were you?
myself.
How old were you?
I was about 4 when we moved, but
Okay.
I would ride my bike to places by myself or take the bus to places even when I was older. So I could identify, and the thing that's funny is he goes out on the beach and you see that life too of all these people lying on the beach, hundreds of people, and he learns from another kid how you can just like trade in pop bottles. And so he learns to like survive, to buy the food he wants, like pizza and stuff, by collecting pop bottles, which is what I used to do to buy comic books.
That's how I paid to go to the World's Fair. It was not a recyclable bottle in New York City area or Long Island area for 2 years because I paid for the World's Fair through 2 cents for the little bottles, 5 cents for the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on 1 second. Sorry, Tom, you had something else?
Yeah, just a real quick run through it. So my first thing was the Automat part that you showed. So Doris Day had a wonderful movie. I think it's her second film. It was called My Dream Is Yours. And she is in this automat all the time with her best friend. And it's constantly like grabbing the sandwiches out of the door. So if you want to see that, you can find it in that movie. And then the really fun part about this too is that Doris Day's character worked in a company where people would call up a number to hear a song, and then she would walk into the phone booth and then sing the song that they requested. So it was just like dial a song. It was a really unique kind of fun thing. Greg and I have talked about this before, but anyway, it's cute if you want to try to catch that movie. And then a lot of other fun things. The book you're talking about, as I recall, there were a couple like that. There was one called McDougal's Steam Shovel, and then another one I think was Mike, the steam shovel, and it would be where he dug out this great big pit, right, or for a foundation, and then he couldn't get out, so they turned him into a furnace at the end. Does that sound familiar?
I don't remember a lot of the details, but somebody did mention in the chat Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel.
Yeah, that's it.
99.9% sure that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah. So it kind of had this kind of like, oh, what's Mike gonna do? He's trapped.
Yeah.
And then they turn him into a furnace, and he lives happily ever after as a furnace. And then funny things that we had happen in New York. So Carrie and I drove out there in my 72 Camaro, and we did so many fun things, but we'd heard that, oh God, it's a horrible city to try to get around in. Don't even try. And we get there, we're just like driving around. There's no traffic anywhere. We're going, what are they talking about? This is nothing. and then we found out that it was a cab strike. But back in that era, yeah, we saw so many. We went to Broadway Joe's. We went. I was hoping Joey or you would remember the name of the Italian restaurant. It's called like Mama Leone's or something like that.
Oh, that was Mama Leone's. That was
That is it.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was we went there every time we went to Times Square. That would be the big treat to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was so many restaurants that, like in one of Bill's photos, you see the Butoni restaurant, and that was a big deal to go and get spaghetti with meatballs at one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And yeah, we saw a lot of plays. We saw what was that one where the guy eats people? It's like Ted's Sweetie Todd. And I remember going to see Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and I don't know. Later on, of course, we saw lots of others, but one of the funniest things that happened that I thought especially Joey would love was my dad was giving us a tour on one of our other trips. We're kind of in the industrial area. There's no cars, there's no people, no traffic. And all of a sudden there's this gorgeous woman with long blonde hair, full length fur coat, and she kind of waves as we're approaching. And then as we get close by, she throws open her coat like a watch salesman down on Times Square, and she's wearing absolutely nothing.
Was this in this was in the Times Square area?
No,
Tom?
no. I said no. I said it reminded me of a watch salesman in Times Square, the way she threw her coat
I
open.
see.
That's great. Before I
Yeah, it was
forget, I want
funny.
to just go back to another picture here real quick. So let me just share the screen. People are asking about the ship. So this is the Tide Shipyards in New Jersey, looking over from one of the Circle Line tours. But there's it's either the Hope or the Mercy was the hospital ship that was over there being refurbished. So Tide Shipyards is long gone, but you could see it come in every couple of years. The Hope or the Mercy would come in, they'd rotate, and they would be refurbished and taken care of over there. So famous ship for quite a few years. I knew I had it.
The other one, Bill, was the Frying Pan. Do you remember that ship?
No, I don't remember that
Yeah,
one.
the Frying Pan was docked on the East River it was a light ship, and you can still see it. It's at Hudson.
Somebody just had it the other day, right?
At Hudson River Park. Mm-hmm.
I want to share one other picture. Somebody mentioned Coney Island again. So I don't know what the weather is like in New York today, but this I have to zoom in a little bit. How's about a busy day at Coney Island in 1939?
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a cropped down version. I didn't have time to go find the original one, but you mentioned the boardwalk, Joey, everybody up there, and think about how many times we've all heard the song, about the boardwalk, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I had mentioned I had gotten lost there when I was a kid, and a cop found me, returned me to my parents, and my mother brought me under the boardwalk for a good talking to. She was so frightened, and the boardwalk really got bad. Everyone used to go under the boardwalk to escape, like if there was a freak sandstorm or if it started to rain. And then later on, it became really a den for drugs, and they closed them down totally. They fenced them in.
Yeah, otherwise they'll burn them down.
Yeah.
Kathy, you had your hand up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my hubby, here he
Hi-
is.
Hi, Bill. John Gregory here. Great
Hi, John.
presentation as always. Just several comments on the amusement parks. There was also in New Jersey a park called Olympic Park. It was like Palisades Park. It was just west of Newark, New Jersey, which is close to where I grew up. And of course, like Palisades Park, it long since has disappeared. The land was just too valuable. But I remember Palisades Park because that was my first date there.
Right.
Yes, Kathy, I think knows that for the first time. But also on the reference to the Fulton Fish Market and the reference to the underworld having to pay insurance and stuff. Um, I know you had to pay the city, a lot of city employees things as well, because I had a guy when I went to Rutgers in Newark, a classmate named Ira Gutman, um, eventually got to be a part-time manager at a place called the Your Father's Mustache. It was the Banjo nightclub in the Greenwich Village area. And he had told me that you had to make payments to people who work for the health department, the fire department, police department, and so forth, so that, you know, the health department didn't shut you down. And if you had a fire, the fire department would show up, or if you needed police, they would show up. And I went there one Friday night and I found Ira on the sidewalk in front of the place with a police officer and an irate customer he had just thrown out of the nightclub, because the rents are so high there that you couldn't afford to have people just go in there and just sit there and watch the show. They had to spend money, and they would do all sorts of things to get people to leave, until finally he threw the guy out, and the guy got mad. He went and got a cop, and as it was, the cop was one of the guys that he was paying off. So the cop was able to kind of settle down the angry customer and get him to leave. So it did have its benefit. Another thing about Ellis Island, there was something which I had known of as the Freedom Trilogy. You had three structures in a line. When the immigrants came into New York Harbor, the first thing they saw was the Statue of Liberty, and then they went on to Ellis Island to get processed. And once they got processed, they didn't want all these millions of people to settle in New York City, so they put them. They took them just across the way to the Jersey Central, New Jersey train station, which is, the building is still there, and they put them on trains to go westward, and that's how they settled into the Midwest. And so that's how you got large ethnic populations in Cleveland and Chicago, Milwaukee, and so forth. And I do remember the automats, and they were really cool like that. And
Yeah, they were really, really neat. And adventure stuff, you can go on, there is a guy that has an automat museum, and you can go online and buy automat equipment if you want to put, put one in your house and see if somebody comes and puts some more cake in it.
That's funny. Oh, also, I think the Todd shipyards might have been Hoboken, either that or maybe Jersey City, but I do remember the name of them, and of course, like everything else, they're long gone.
Yeah, it sure is. While I have some people here that are movie buffs, maybe people can help me identify a set of pictures here. So this is 1939 was these negatives are in, and it's all apparently being shot at the Empire State Building. So if anybody recognizes who any of these people are, and I cannot recognize any of them, but if anybody recognizes any of these smiling faces or anything, I'd absolutely love to know who they might be.
Bill, if you want, you can send me those photos, and I'll look at them, because I might be able to help you.
Sure, I would appreciate it. Like I said, they're in there. There's one here. He's in a military uniform in here. I first thought it was the Middletons visiting or something, but
Yeah.
Not them. And I have not yet been able to identify who these people are. But it's kind of interesting, what pops up. And Carolyn, you were mentioning you used to give talks on cruise ships. I did one on one of the Disney ships. But if the pandemic ever lifts and it's ever safe to go on a cruise again, and who could get me on a cruise ship, let me know. Right now, I wouldn't take the Staten Island ferry, but our daughter just got back from a week in Alaska, and thank God she's okay.
Well,
Okay.
I've certainly been wanting to do it, and the group that I did these through the Smithsonian for years and years, and they drastically reduced their cruise lecture people. So I got in touch with another company, and they were about to have me start doing it just when the pandemic hit, and they're now just not doing anything until the ships basically say we feel good about this.
Yeah.
And but I do get cruise ads every single week from all the ones that I've cruised on: Holland America, Crystal, Regent. Princess. They all need the lectures. They're just not doing it right now. that I know of.
Yeah, no, I think right now they don't have the number of people to justify giving a free room to anybody. So Margot said the tour that she was on was, I think, running about 60% capacity. And
Wow.
I'm just reading that some of the Disney ships are just starting to go out today for the first time. So it's
Weren't they
definitely,
just doing the short 3-day cruises though?
I don't
3 or
know.
4 day?
Yeah, I don't know which ones that they're doing.
Yeah, I've
And
been on a Disney cruise, but I didn't lecture on it. I was a passenger, regular paying passenger. And oh my gosh, I could just imagine, because it's kids everywhere and everybody's clustering around the characters. I can't imagine what kind of care they're having to take to make sure everybody's socially distanced.
Wow.
Yeah. Somebody asked a question here in the chat about the camel sign. You can see one behind Jim Brown. I've also got another picture here. The camel billboard was really neat because you can see, again, if we zoom in a little, the smoke is coming out of the man's mouth. So they did both Camel and one other brand of cigarettes. They rotated, changed for a while, but yeah, it would actually go and blow smoke out. And it was a great thing to come down the street and watch the billboard going. You had another one, I think it was Chase and Sanborn Coffee. Looked like it was a steaming cup of coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you had some others that had some animation to them and stuff. But the Camel billboard was a big thing. And when I remember reading something about when they sold the building that it was on, that there were all sorts of legal rights to make sure that the Camel mechanism was grandfathered and the new owners were not able to, chuck them back out. So,
Hey, Bill?
yeah.
Yeah, it's Glenn. Yeah, I'm the one that put that up there. I remember not just smoke, but it actual blew a smoke ring.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
would actually come out as a ring if it wasn't windy.
Yeah. No, it was great fun as a kid. My dad had stopped smoking. My mom was a chain smoker, and but she didn't smoke Camels. I think she was all Marlboro. But we thought that was just so great to watch that thing going and blow across the area. So yeah, and it did better than the World's Fair smoke ring. I think the wind was a lot better there for it, but it was a pretty neat thing. Were you from New York too, Glenn?
No, I was born in Hollywood, but
Oh,
we did visit it in my first trip there was, I think, 1958. And I was gonna send you a note, but I have a tray of slides my dad took that you might be interested in adding to your collection or something.
Great. Well, as I mentioned, I'm still more than glad to lend you a scanner sometime. So if we have Debbie's puts together the lunch next month, I'll be glad to bring it for you.
Yeah, let's share a table. I remember one shot of the 3 ships. There was the Queen Elizabeth, the United States, and the Queen Mary all lined up side by side. So I thought that would be kind of interesting for you.
Boy, that's the classic days of that stuff. I mean, like I said, we loved it. My dad worked for a whole bunch of shipping companies, Boyce Griffin, Maersk Lines, and then he did 20-something years with the Japanese company, NYK Lines. And we used to just love to go down to the ships, even when they were in there were cargo ships, and they would start coming into the port over in Brooklyn. And we'd go down there, and he'd have to do some paperwork or something. And they just let us run up and down this cargo ship and do whatever we want. Because it will blow the whistle when we need you to come back. So I just loved it. And I thought very seriously about getting into the Merchant Marine. And thank God I failed the Coast Guard line officer's eye exam, because being in the Merchant Marine would have been a terrible career choice, as you see what's happened to the shipping industry. But I absolutely loved going down and just spending all the time I could on those cruise ships, or even, like I said, a freighter. I just loved going, into them. So, that's why when the Queen Mary is open, it's a great spot to go to. I'm hoping they're able to salvage it.
My favorite trip to New York was when I was working on the Disney Fantasy out of Germany, and my wife and I got to be on the crossing. And we get about 2 days out of New York, and I get a text from the cruise director saying, "Hey, Glenn, is there any way you can get the ship's whistle to play New York, New York when we pull in?"
Did you?
Yes, we did.
Did you get to practice it at sea?
Yes, we did. We practiced it and almost blew up the sound system. You know, the ships have a regular whistle, but then we also had a huge concert sound system up there where they can play different songs so they can talk back and forth to each other and answer, you know, like When You Wish Upon a Star, then the
Right.
other ship would play Makes No Difference Who You Are. And so we used that, and I actually had to email a guy in California, and he put the track together and sent it back to us. So we're using doing whatever it takes to get the job done, you know?
That's funny. I took a Disney cruise for, I guess it was my 50th birthday. God, it can't be that long ago. And we really enjoyed it. Thought the ship was wonderful, the service was wonderful, and it was funny. It was Carol that booked it, and as a thank you or a birthday present for me. And 2 days before the cruise, Disney calls and says, "Hey, we saw your name on the ship. Would you like to give a talk about Disney television?" So I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that." And then the day before, literally packing, the phone rang and it said, "Could you actually do a second talk?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it's my vacation, you know, but I mean, do I get anything out of this? You know, I think maybe we get tea with the captain or something." I said, "Oh, yeah, we're going to comp you. We didn't tell you that?" I said, "Okay, bring it on. I'll talk all week if you want." So that made the trip even better. What was really fun about that trip, Carol had totally surprised me by bringing my parents on board the ship. And I had no idea they were going to be there. So we came down the escalator at Orlando at the airport, and we're looking, baggage claim 3. It's over there. There's 1, there's 2, there's mom, there's dad. Wait, that's not right. And she had gotten them on the ship as a surprise to me. And my dad was just as proud as punch, because every day they would make an announcement. Today in the so-and-such theater, Bill Connor is going to be giving a talk. The poor passengers around my father, he would, "That's my son. He's the one. He's doing it," sort of thing. So it was really special to be able to share that with my folks, with them having such an affinity for cruise ships and everything. And it was one of the last cruises they went on because of age, and Disney treated us right. They really liked it. And I did get tired of hearing, "Well, we were on the Queen Mary, they did this. When we were in the Queen Elizabeth, they did that." I kept telling them, "You could fall overboard this one really easy."
Which ship were you on?
On a Magic.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had a real nice time. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, we sailed on the Magic too. We had a 50th wedding anniversary celebration for my mom and dad, all the family, and then it was our 35th or something like that. So it was, and they pulled out all the stops for us.
Yeah,
That's nice.
Our son got sick. He came down with some sort of bug, and you know, he felt really bad. He couldn't say goodbye to the kitchen, you know, the wait staff that goes with you from ship to ship, room to room to room. So he felt bad. He couldn't go down. So we wheeled him down in a wheelchair so they could all come out to the doorway and say hi to him. But one of the things we still remember is they came around. They were asked, you know, "What sort of drink do you want?" And he said, you know, Roy Rogers or whatever. And the guy said, "How many cherries do you want?" And Neil said, "As many as you can fit." Well, the guy came out and he had a glass full of cherries with some beverage in it. You know, he's having fun. 18, 19, you know, sort of thing. So yeah, they just went all out, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great fun. Well, I appreciate folks joining, and again, 9/11 being a sad day for all of us New Yorkers, in particular, Americans in general. Thank you, Joey, for adding some of your memories, and I probably
You're
have
welcome.
lots of other pictures of the dock your father worked at.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to see more. Sure. This was a great show.
Yeah, I'm gonna put together a thing of ships, because as I was going through it, I saw all sorts of ship pictures and just skipped around them, and I have pictures of like this seaplane operation that flew fresh lobsters in from Maine every day to New York, and
Yeah.
the New York City seaport that all the rich guys would fly their seaplanes in from the northern shore of Long Island and come into the city. I mean, things that are all just gone now. So yeah, like I said, I love New York, and I love going back there. I took a lot of pictures. I stuck away from any of my own family pictures, but I can take us back to Ellis Island when I took the tour out there when it was open. Matter of fact, if you go to my website, billcotter.com, there's a link for places I've been, things I've seen, and there's a selection of the Ellis Island pictures out there from the days before it was restored. And it was just like walk into a ghost town. As I mentioned, the typewriter's still sitting there, the ink pads next to it with the, you know, everything was just like they just said, okay, we're done, we're out of here, go home. And it was just the hospital, everything was still sitting there. It was really a real time capsule, a real ghost town out on the island. So thank everybody. Next week, there is no talk. I have a Boy Scout event for next weekend. It's the 65th anniversary of our Boy Scout camp from New York that some of us went to. And I was going to be back there in person, but I cannot make it, so I'm going to be participating virtually in it. So I think in 2 weeks, we're probably going to be doing vintage ocean liners. And I'm still trying to get the hemisphere guy to twist his arm. And I think we'll be coming back to a New York part 2, because I think I touched maybe 20% of the pictures that I do have. So thanks people for joining. I hope you have a great weekend, and hope it's not too hot wherever you are. It's 103 out here today. I'm wishing I was in the lake behind Wayne right there. What lake is that, Wayne?
It's Sarita Park Lake
And where is it?
in Sarita, where I live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it a real lake or a man-made one?
Oh, it's man-made.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, because I know Arizona is not famous for its lakes. Great. Well, thanks all, and I will see you hopefully in 2 weeks. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.